guys, I am back for another episode of PhD advice. This week I thought it would be cool to talk about how I have managed to try and maintain productivity and reduce stress levels whilst doing a PhD. I am not a naturally very productive person. I think I quite easily slip into being unproductive, so I've had to work really hard at trying to structure my life in a way that means that I will do the best work possible. And so I think that if I have found these to work, I guess a lot of other people might find that they work as well. So I split it down into 6 tips this video, and I really hope that you find them useful. Please do comment down below if you do any of these things already, or if you have any other tips for people or for me, which I might find useful. Let's go! So tip number 1, don't work from home. This might sound a bit controversial. Well, I don't know if controversial is the right word, but when I first started the PhD, I thought it would be so amazing to be able to work from home and have all my creature comforts and be able to cook what I wanted and, you know, watch TV in the evening, I don't know, just relax, feel more relaxed. But actually, I found that it's not great to work from home. And for me, that's because I associate home with relaxation, and I don't want to be working in my relaxation space, and my flat isn't big enough to really have separate spaces. I think if I had like a study, a proper workspace that I just did work in at home, that might be okay, but it's still really way too easy to slip into being unproductive for me at home. And so what I've been doing instead since the beginning of January is going into university every day or every weekday to do work. And I find that it has been really useful because although you're not productive all the time at university or elsewhere, wherever you're working, there's just a general sense that if you give yourself the time in the workspace, like a full-time job, that is not your home space, you will just get more done, inevitably. It doesn't have to be university. I do sometimes work in cafes or libraries. You know, whatever works for you is fine. But I have found that working from home just isn't productive. Tip number 2 is to wake up at the same time every day, and for that time to be relatively early in the day. This was a really painful realization for me, much like how I thought it would be so nice to be able to work from home. One of the appeals of doing a PhD was that I could wake up whenever I wanted and work whenever I wanted. My natural rhythm is that I wake up really late and I stay up really late, and I can work in the middle of the night quite comfortably, but I found that it's actually quite depressing to wake up late and to work late every day. I found that as my work day started later and later, I started to feel worse and worse about my PhD work. And this was because work was hanging over me all day, so if I woke up late at like 11 AM or something, I would get up, you know, do all the usual stuff. I might not start work till 1 or 2 or 3 PM, and then I would end up working all evening in order to feel like I had done enough for the day, which meant that I didn't have any evening time to relax or do fun things or go and see friends or watch a film. Things that I really enjoy doing. And so I just felt like my PhD was taking over my life, but I wasn't being very productive. And it just didn't feel good. I don't think it was very good for my mental health because I never had the feeling of satisfaction that you get from finishing a day of work and relaxing before you go to bed. So I would be working, I mean, at its worst, when I was doing my upgrade, I was starting work at like 9 PM and working until 6 AM, which is a very bizarre way to work. It was quite productive and I did produce work at that time, which was fine, but I just didn't feel very good about my day. So this year I resolved to fix this problem, and I've been waking up at either 7:30 or 8 AM every morning. And I know that's not very early for a lot of people, but for me that is a real achievement, and I've found that waking up at the same time every day has become so much easier because your body just gets used to it. I find it very hard to wake up, so I downloaded an app which makes me walk to another room in order to switch it off. It's something to do with how close it is to the Wi-Fi router, and I found that really helpful. So if you are also someone who struggles to wake up in the morning, I would definitely recommend getting something like that, and it does get easier as time goes on. Now, it doesn't mean like that my schedule is now perfect in terms of waking up early and finishing early, but generally speaking, I try and start work as quickly as possible after I wake up, and then I work until maybe 6 p.m. or 7, depending on what's going on at university, and then I come home and the evening is just for relaxation, which is so much better for me overall. Number 3 is that you should do some form of exercise every day and make sure that you get out of the house at least once a day. During the least productive times during my PhD so far, I would wake up late, as I said in the previous point. I might sit at home in my pajamas all day, and I'd get into a really bad mood because I wasn't being productive, and I also wasn't doing anything else fun either. In the spring last year, when I was getting particularly stressed because I had to do my upgrade viva and I was writing my upgrade document, I got really stressed at that time. I came across a YouTube channel which is called Yoga with Adriene, which is very popular. She's one of the, I think she's the biggest yoga tutor on YouTube. And she has these 30-day challenges, and I started doing it, and I found it so immensely helpful for my mental health and general feelings of stress to do something every day that had nothing to do with my brain thinking. It was just physical exercise. I would also make sure at that time that I went out every day. I'd either go for a run or a walk in the park. That was at the time when I was working from home, and that really made such a difference for me. As someone who had never really done structured exercise before, I was really amazed by how much it helped me in terms of my work and productivity and my general mental health and feeling good. Even though if you're feeling unproductive, you've had a day where you haven't been able to get to work, it might feel counterintuitive to go out and do something else. I guarantee you that if you spend half an hour doing exercise, it will never feel like a waste of time, because you'll come back feeling energized and more focused when you get back to your work. Now that I'm going to university every day rather than working from home, I cycle in. It's about half hour to cycle to LSE and cycle home, so that's an hour of cycling every day, and I do yoga every evening before I go to sleep. And I find that it's just a really nice routine for me. Cycling is particularly good because you're not wasting any time. That's the journey you would have to do anyway if you were going to work somewhere. And it's free and it's more fun than going on public transport. So I would always recommend cycling. Yoga really works for me because I find it's good exercise, but also it's really good for my stress levels, and now I associate it with winding down at the end of the day. But you could do anything, whatever works for you. Some people love the gym. I'm really not a gym person, and you could go for a run, but equally it doesn't have to be some kind of formal exercise. It's just moving your body around in a way that is different to what you do when you're just sitting around thinking and writing. Tip number 4 is one that has been so useful for me, which is maintaining a weekly schedule and having daily to-do lists. One of the things I found most difficult about a PhD is juggling all the different types of work that you have to do. Obviously it depends what kind of PhD you're doing, but for me, I'm doing my own research, which involves doing interviews and field work and making these videos, but also a lot of reading and writing. And on top of that, I do other jobs in the department. So I work on a journal, I'm writing a chapter with someone, and what else? I'm also working on a module this term. So there's lots of different things. And I find that if I don't manage my time well, it just all kind of spirals out of control and gets quite stressful. So I found that if you approach the PhD like a regular sort of 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 job that is very structured, it becomes a lot more manageable to juggle all the different jobs that you have to do. So for me, what I do is that I split the week into the different days, and I do certain types of jobs on different days, and I try and maintain that every week. So on Monday, I work on the journal and the chapter that I'm doing with Sarah. On Tuesday, we have our structured writing day in the PhD room, which usually will involve writing whatever I'm trying to write at that moment, or doing reading sometimes. Wednesdays we have a PhD seminar where we have to do reading for and prepare for every week. On Thursdays I do data analysis and interview transcripts, and Friday I either make videos or I do reading for my PhD. Of course there is a certain amount of flexibility and I often swap things around of a week, but having that basic kind of structure and like notes in my calendar that say that this is the day for this really keeps it fresh in my mind. And then every day I'll have a number of tasks that I need to complete, and I'll often be putting tasks into other days of the week, or if I don't get round to a task on a day, I just push it to the next available day for that task. I found that having quite strict calendars and to-do lists, rather than adding more stress, which I think some people might think, it actually takes away from the stress, because I know that I'm not going to forget to do anything that I need to do, and that I'm allocating the appropriate amount of time for each task and not kind of putting more onto one task than another and dropping balls, if you know what I mean. So tip number 5 is to take weekends off. This is more of a fun one than some of the other ones. I think that when you're doing a PhD or other mentally demanding work, it's not really possible to be productive all of the time unless you're like a machine. And so it's really important to take time off, and for that time to be like quality downtime. I think a lot of PhD students face the problem where they feel like they have so much work to do that they have to work every day, and that the idea of taking time off is stressful in and of itself because they feel like they'll get behind. But I found, having done both, working all the time kind of unproductively and working less of the time more productively, that the latter feels a lot better. So if you can do stuff to your week to make sure that you are productive from Monday to Friday, then you can take the weekends off and feel good about it and come back on Monday feeling fresh and having another productive week. That's the ideal situation. For me, at least. Also, I feel like it should go without saying, but there is a lot more to life than your job or doing a PhD, and you should just have fun sometimes, man. Hang out with your friends, do something chill, play a game, watch a film, go hiking, whatever it is that you enjoy doing, and that makes your life more fulfilling. I think it's really important to make sure you have time for those things. I think it's ideal to take the whole weekend off, but if you really feel like you can't do that, then having at least one day off a week where you absolutely don't touch any work is really important. And finally, tip number 6, don't be too hard on yourself. A lot of PhD students that I know hold themselves up to impossibly high standards, and that is the main cause of their stress and frustration. Inevitably, in a 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 year project, there will be times when you are not productive and you're not feeling it and you grind to a halt, and that's fine. Rather than beat yourself up about it, it's way better to just chill, take a day off, come back to it the next day. When I have an unproductive day, which happens now and then, I try not to be too hard on myself, and I just kind of take it in my stride. It's a lot better to just take one day off with confidence and then come back the next day than to just feel stressed and try and do work every day. This relates to the point about taking weekends off as well. I just think tomorrow is another day, and that's fine. So that's it from me. I hope you found this useful. Do let me know down below if you already do any of these things, or if you're going to implement them, or if you have other tips for me and for the people in the comments section. Thanks very much. Bye!